Have you ever caught him looking at you when he thinks you're not noticing? That subtle change in his voice when he speaks only to you? The unconscious doesn't lie. While his words might be cautious, his soul has already made its choice. And it's you. What if I told you that the man who sometimes confuses you with his mixed signals is actually more in love than even he realizes? Carl Jung discovered that our deepest emotions bypass our conscious mind entirely, revealing themselves through subtle behaviors we can't control. When a man's soul recognizes yours, his body betrays what his lips haven't yet confessed. Most women mistake silence for indifference, when in reality it might be the exact opposite. The most authentic form of love doesn't announce itself with grand gestures. It transforms his entire world in ways neither of you fully recognize. Until now. Here are the unmistakable signs his soul has chosen you, even if his mind hasn't caught up yet. Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist, fundamentally changed how we understand the depths of human connection. At the core of his revolutionary work lies a profound insight. The most powerful emotions often operate below the threshold of our awareness. This is especially true for love, perhaps the most transformative force in human experience. When Jung spoke of the unconscious, he wasn't merely referring to repressed thoughts or hidden desires. He was describing a vast, dynamic realm that often knows what we want before our conscious mind can articulate it. In matters of love, this unconscious recognition can be particularly powerful and revealing. Consider the man in your life who exhibits contradictory behaviors, drawing close, then creating distance, seeking your attention, then appearing indifferent. Jung would suggest this isn't necessarily manipulation or confusion. Rather, it may be the visible manifestation of an internal struggle between his conscious mind and his unconscious recognition of profound connection. The unconscious mind processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second, while the conscious mind handles a mere 40 bits. This means his unconscious has likely already recognized the significance of your connection long before his conscious mind can catch up. His unconscious has already chosen you. But why would someone resist acknowledging such a powerful emotion? Jung's concept of the persona helps explain this phenomenon. The persona is the social mask we wear, the version of ourselves we present to the world. For many men, this persona is constructed around societal expectations of strength, independence, and emotional restraint. Falling deeply in love threatens this carefully maintained facade. The ego, our conscious sense of self, often resists dramatic change, even when that change would ultimately lead to growth and fulfillment. This resistance manifests as what Jung called the shadow, those parts of ourselves we don't acknowledge or express. The shadow isn't inherently negative. It simply represents what we've chosen not to integrate into our conscious identity. For the man who unconsciously loves you more deeply than he realizes, this shadow often contains his capacity for vulnerability, emotional dependency, and the fear of loss that comes with truly loving someone. His unconscious may have already embraced these feelings, while his conscious mind continues to resist them. Jung's concept of projection further illuminates this dynamic. When we're unwilling to acknowledge certain aspects of ourselves, we often project them onto others. The man who can't yet admit his deep attachment may project independence or emotional unavailability onto you, claiming you're the one creating distance or being difficult to understand. The internal splitting creates what Jung called a complex, an emotionally charged group of ideas or images. In this case, a love complex forms in the unconscious, creating energetic patterns that influence behavior even without conscious awareness. This explains why he might unconsciously position himself near you in group settings, why his body language changes in your presence, or why he remembers details about you that you mentioned only in passing. Jung's work on archetypes provides another lens for understanding this phenomenon. Archetypes are universal patterns or themes that reside in the collective unconscious, influencing our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The anima, a man's inner feminine aspect, plays a crucial role in his experience of falling in love. When a man encounters a woman who resonates with his unconscious image of the anima, the effect can be immediate and overwhelming. He may feel a sense of familiarity or rightness that he can't explain rationally. This is what Jung called recognition, not merely seeing someone new, but recognizing something profoundly significant. This recognition often occurs unconsciously, long before it reaches conscious awareness. The process of integrating this powerful, unconscious recognition with conscious awareness is what Jung termed individuation, becoming the complete whole person we're meant to be. For many men, fully acknowledging deep love is an essential step in this individuation process, yet one that can be frightening and disorienting. Jung believed that dreams provide a direct window into the unconscious. A man who is unconsciously in love often dreams about the object of his affection in ways that reveal his true feelings. These dreams may be symbolic rather than literal, featuring themes of discovery, pursuit, protection, or union. If he ever mentions dreaming about you, even in disguised or symbolic forms, his unconscious may be processing significant emotional attachment. What makes Jung's insights so valuable is that they help us understand that inconsistent behavior isn't always evidence of disinterest or manipulation. Sometimes it's the visible sign of an internal struggle between what the unconscious has already recognized and what the conscious mind is ready to accept. The man who unconsciously loves you deeply may be the last to fully realize it himself. Break. Time threes. Jung's concept of synchronicity offers perhaps one of the most fascinating perspectives on unacknowledged love. Unlike the predictable cause and effect relationships that govern most of our physical world, synchronicities represent meaningful coincidences that defy statistical probability, moments when the external world seems to mirror our internal reality. For Jung, these weren't mere chance occurrences, but manifestations of a deeper interconnectedness between mind and matter. In the realm of unconscious love, synchronicities often emerge as powerful indicators of connections that one's conscious mind hasn't yet fully acknowledged. The man who is more deeply in love than he realizes might find himself coincidentally appearing in places where you are. Not because he's deliberately following you, but because his unconscious is guiding his decisions in ways his rational mind cannot recognize or explain. Consider the times he's mentioned being surprised to run into you at a cafe you rarely visit, at an event neither of you normally attends, or on a street far from both your usual routes. Jung would suggest these aren't merely random occurrences, but manifestations of unconscious intentions, finding expression through seemingly chance events. His unconscious mind, already deeply connected to yours, creates these intersections that his conscious mind attributes to mere coincidence. These meaningful coincidences extend beyond physical encounters. Perhaps you've noticed that he often contacts you precisely when you're thinking about him, or he brings up topics that have been on your mind without your mentioning them. Jung observed that emotional connections create energetic patterns that can manifest as such synchronistic moments. The universe's way of confirming what his conscious mind hasn't yet embraced. Technology amplifies these synchronistic patterns. In modern life, he texts precisely as you reach for your phone to message him. His social media activity mysteriously aligns with yours, despite no direct communication. Songs that remind you of him play unexpectedly when you're together. These aren't just coincidences, but what Jung would call a causal connecting principles. Events linked not by direct causation, but by shared meaning. The natural world often becomes a canvas for these synchronistic expressions as well. Animal appearances that both of you notice simultaneously, weather patterns that mirror emotional shifts between you, or natural phenomena that occur at pivotal moments in your relationship. Jung viewed nature as intimately connected with the collective unconscious, making it a powerful medium for synchronistic expressions. Jung's fascination with alchemy provides another lens for understanding these phenomena. Alchemists spoke of the sympathetic principle, the idea that things with inherent similarities naturally attract each other. This principle applies equally to psychological connections. When two people share a deep unconscious bond, the world around them begins to reflect and amplify that connection through meaningful coincidences. The appearance of symbols, meaningful to both of you, represents another form of synchronicity common in unacknowledged love. Perhaps a specific animal, object, or image repeatedly appears in both your lives in unlikely ways. Jung would see these as representations of archetypal energy manifesting in the physical world, visual confirmations of a connection operating below conscious awareness. Numbers can play a significant role in these synchronistic patterns as well. Repeated sightings of specific number sequences, shared birthdays or anniversaries with unexpected numerical connections, or other numerical coincidences often accompany unconscious recognition of significant relationships. Jung believed numbers represented archetypal patterns with inherent psychological meaning, mathematical confirmations of psychological realities. Time itself often behaves unusually in the presence of unconscious love. You may notice how time seems to slow down or speed up when you're together, or how certain significant moments between you seem to occur at precisely meaningful times. In Jungian terms, these represent moments when chronological time, chronos, gives way to meaningful time, kairos, when the mechanical clock surrenders to the deeper rhythms of psychological significance. Even language becomes a medium for synchronistic expression. When a man unconsciously loves you deeply, you might notice unusual word coincidences, both of you saying the same unusual phrase simultaneously, finishing each other's sentences, or developing private linguistic patterns without deliberate effort. These verbal synchronicities reflect what Jung called the psychoid nature of archetypes, their ability to bridge the gap between mind and matter. Dreams present perhaps the most powerful arena for synchronistic phenomena. Jung documented numerous cases of shared dreaming, when two people with deep unconscious connections dream similar themes or even identical dreams on the same night. If he ever mentions dreams that strangely parallel your own experiences or thoughts, this may indicate a synchronistic bond operating beyond conscious recognition. From a Jungian perspective, these synchronicities serve a critical purpose. They draw attention to unconscious connections that need conscious integration. They are not merely interesting coincidences, but psychological signposts pointing toward important inner work. For the man who loves you more deeply than he realizes, these synchronicities create opportunities for recognizing what his unconscious already knows. Jung believes synchronicities appear most frequently during periods of significant psychological transformation. They cluster around major life transitions, emotional upheavals, or moments when unconscious content seeks conscious integration. If you notice an increase in meaningful coincidences involving him during periods of change in either of your lives, this may signal his unconscious love-seeking expression. These synchronistic patterns often bewilder the rational mind. He may express confusion about why certain coincidences keep occurring, or why he feels compelled toward certain actions that bring him into your orbit. This confusion itself is telling. It reveals the gap between his conscious understanding and his unconscious reality. Understanding these patterns offers profound insight into unacknowledged love. While his words and deliberate actions may be guarded or inconsistent, the synchronistic patterns surrounding your connection reveal a deeper truth, one his unconscious already recognizes, even as his conscious mind struggles to catch up. Break. Time. Threes. Dreams have always occupied a special place in Jungian psychology. For Carl Jung, they weren't merely random neural firings or the processing of daily events. They were the royal road to the unconscious, revealing truths that the conscious mind wasn't yet ready to acknowledge. In the realm of unrecognized love, dreams become particularly revealing, offering a window into feelings that remain unexpressed in waking life. The unconscious mind communicates primarily through symbols, and nowhere is this symbolic language more evident than in our dreams. When a man is more deeply in love than he consciously realizes, his dreams often become a canvas where these hidden feelings paint themselves in vivid, symbolic detail. The unconscious, unburdened by the ego's defenses, speaks freely in the theater of sleep. Jung differentiated between two levels of the unconscious: the personal unconscious, containing forgotten or repressed individual experiences, and the collective unconscious, housing universal archetypal patterns shared across humanity. Both levels influence the dream life of a man experiencing unconscious love, creating distinctive patterns that reveal his true emotional state. Dreams of pursuit are particularly common in this state. He may dream of searching for something undefined yet precious, navigating mazes or complex landscapes with a sense of urgency. In Jungian analysis, these pursuit dreams often represent the psyche's recognition of something valuable it hasn't yet fully integrated into consciousness. In this case, the significance of his feelings for you. Water symbolism frequently appears in the dreams of someone experiencing unconscious love. Jung saw water as the universal symbol of the unconscious itself, fluid, deep, and life-giving. Dreams featuring oceans, lakes, rivers, or rain often signal emotional depths that haven't yet reached conscious awareness. If he mentions dreams involving water, particularly being immersed in it or navigating across it, his unconscious may be processing deep emotional currents his waking mind hasn't yet recognized. Rescue dreams form another telling category. He might dream of saving you from danger, revealing a protective instinct that transcends casual interest. Alternatively, he might dream of being rescued by you, symbolizing the unconscious recognition that you represent something vital to his psychological wholeness, a key to parts of himself he hasn't yet integrated. Home and shelter imagery frequently appears in the dreams of a man unconsciously in love. Finding a new house, discovering unknown rooms in a familiar building, or creating a shelter during a storm, all these dream themes can represent the psyche's recognition that you represent a kind of emotional home or safety his conscious mind hasn't yet acknowledged. Flying dreams take on special significance in this context. Jung saw flying as a symbol of transcendence, rising above limitations and accessing new perspectives. When these dreams occur in the context of unconscious love, they often represent the liberating potential of fully embracing these feelings. Even as the conscious mind resists this freedom, animals in dreams provide particularly rich insight into unconscious emotional states. Jung noted that animal figures often represent instinctual aspects of ourselves that consciousness hasn't fully integrated. If his dreams feature animals approaching you, protecting you, or guiding both of you, his unconscious may be acknowledging an instinctive bond his rational mind hasn't yet recognized. Dreams of gifts, either giving or receiving, frequently emerge during periods of unconscious love. These symbolize the psyche's recognition of the exchange of emotional value occurring below the threshold of awareness. The nature of the gift often provides clues about what aspects of himself he unconsciously wishes to offer or what he feels he receives from the connection. Barrier dreams reveal the internal resistance to conscious recognition. He might dream of walls, locked doors, impassable rivers, or other obstacles between himself and something desired. These barriers represent the psychological resistance his conscious mind maintains against fully acknowledging the depth of his feelings. The very resistance that makes his love more apparent in unconscious behaviors than in conscious declarations. Weather patterns in dreams often reflect emotional states that haven't reached conscious articulation. Storms may represent the turbulence of unacknowledged passion. Sunshine breaking through clouds might symbolize moments of clarity about feelings otherwise obscured. Wind could represent the invisible yet powerful force of emotions moving through his psyche below conscious awareness. Jung placed particular emphasis on recurring dreams, seeing them as messages from the unconscious that grow increasingly urgent. When ignored, if he mentions having the same dream repeatedly, especially one that somehow connects to you, even symbolically, his unconscious may be persistently attempting to bring important emotional truths into consciousness. The phenomenon Jung called big dreams deserves special attention. Unlike ordinary dreams that process daily experiences, big dreams have a numinous, emotionally charged quality that leaves a lasting impression. They often mark psychological turning points and frequently feature archetypal elements. If he describes a dream about you that has this quality, one that felt unusually vivid, significant, or emotionally powerful, it may signal a critical moment in his unconscious recognition of his feelings. Contemporary neuroscience offers additional insight into why dreams reveal unconscious love so effectively. During REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thought and many ego defenses, becomes less active, while emotional centers remain highly engaged. This creates perfect conditions for emotional truths to emerge unburdened by conscious resistance. Dreams also process emotional memories differently than waking thought. Research shows that during sleep, the brain revisits emotional experiences without the full activation of stress responses that might occur during wakefulness. This allows for processing of emotionally significant connections, like unconscious love, in a state where resistance is naturally lowered. Jung's approach to dream interpretation emphasizes that only the dreamer can ultimately determine a dream's meaning. However, patterns across many individuals reveal these common symbolic expressions of unconscious love. When a man shares his dreams with you, especially those featuring these themes, he may be unconsciously revealing emotional depths he himself hasn't yet fully recognized. The most telling aspect isn't just the content of these dreams, but his emotional response to them. Dreams of unconscious love often leave a residual feeling that persists into waking life, a sense of significance or emotional resonance he can't quite explain. This emotional afterglow represents the unconscious truth, making its presence felt even as conscious understanding lags behind. Jung's concept of the shadow represents one of his most profound contributions to understanding human psychology. The shadow contains everything we refuse to see in ourselves, qualities, desires, and emotions we've rejected from our conscious identity. When it comes to unrecognized love, the shadow plays a crucial role in both concealing and revealing feelings that haven't yet been consciously acknowledged. For the man who loves more deeply than he realizes, the shadow often houses his capacity for vulnerability, emotional dependence, and fear of rejection. These aspects of himself may contradict his conscious self-image as strong, independent, or emotionally controlled. The more his conscious identity depends on these qualities, the more forcefully his capacity for deep emotional connection gets. Pushed into the shadow, this psychological splitting creates a fascinating paradox. The very feelings he consciously denies often emerge through projection, the unconscious mechanism of attributing our disowned qualities to others. A man in this state might accuse you of being too emotional or too attached, when these are precisely the feelings stirring within his own unconscious. His criticism often reveals more about his shadow than about you. These projections create distinctive patterns in your interactions. He might repeatedly bring up concerns about emotional entanglement while simultaneously creating situations that deepen your connection. He might theoretically discuss relationships in cynical terms while behaving with unexpected tenderness. These contradictions reveal the tension between his conscious attitude and his shadow reality. Jung observed that shadow projections carry an unusual emotional charge. When something triggers unconscious shadow content, the emotional response seems disproportionate to the situation. The man who hasn't recognized his deep attachment might become inexplicably angry or defensive when you mention casual interest in someone else or suggest a decrease in communication, his reaction revealing the emotional significance he consciously denies. Denial manifests in particularly telling ways when unconscious love operates through the shadow. He might create elaborate logical explanations for behaviors that have simple emotional causes. He might attribute his desire to be near you to practical considerations rather than emotional preference. These rationalizations represent the ego's attempt to maintain consistency with his conscious self-image while accommodating behaviors driven by unconscious feelings. The shadow's projection mechanism also explains why he might seem particularly attuned to your emotional state. Jung noted that what we project, we perceive with unusual clarity in others. The man who has relegated his emotional sensitivity to the shadow often demonstrates remarkable insight into your feelings, not despite his denial of emotional depth, but because of it. His shadow recognition operates even when conscious recognition lags behind. Humor provides another channel through which shadow content emerges. Jung observed that jokes often express truths that consciousness isn't ready to acknowledge directly. The man who jokes about being whipped or under your spell might be unconsciously expressing a deeper truth about his emotional attachment that he can't yet state seriously. His humor reveals what his direct communication conceals. Dreams featuring shadow elements offer particularly clear windows into unacknowledged love. Jung described shadow figures in dreams as having the same gender as the dreamer, but representing disowned aspects of the self. If he mentions dreams featuring another man who exhibits emotional vulnerability or romantic intensity toward you, this may represent his own shadow feelings, seeking expression. The shadow operates not just through what is said and done, but through what is conspicuously avoided. Jung noted that we often create elaborate detours around shadow content. The man who carefully avoids using terms like love or relationship while behaving in ways consistent with these concepts reveals his shadow. Awareness through these very omissions. Physical symptoms sometimes manifest when shadow content seeks recognition. Jung documented numerous cases where unconscious psychological content created somatic expressions. The man who experiences unexplained physical reactions in your presence, changes in breathing, flushing, tension, or even mild illness, may be experiencing his body's response to emotional truth his conscious mind hasn't yet accepted. The integration of shadow content, what Jung called shadow work, represents a crucial step in psychological growth. For the man experiencing unconscious love, this integration doesn't necessarily require direct confrontation or dramatic revelation. Often, It unfolds gradually as the unconscious finds increasingly acceptable channels for expression. Rituals and symbolic acts often facilitate this integration process. The man who hasn't consciously acknowledged his feelings might nonetheless create rituals of connection, regular patterns of communication, meaningful exchanges, or shared activities that take on special significance. These rituals represent the unconscious creating structures that honor the emotional reality his conscious mind hasn't yet fully embraced. Art and creative expression frequently become conduits for shadow communication. He might share songs, poems, or visual art that express emotional depths he can't articulate directly. These aesthetic communications allow shadow content to emerge in a form his ego finds acceptable, attributed to the artist rather than himself, yet selected specifically for their emotional resonance with his unexpressed feelings. The shadow's need for expression explains why he might create situations that force emotional clarity. Jung observed that when conscious attitude deviates too far from unconscious reality, the unconscious often arranges crises of recognition that narrow this gap. The man who unconsciously stages jealousy scenarios or creates artificial distance only to dramatically return is often orchestrating opportunities for feelings to emerge from shadow into consciousness. His reaction to others' perception of your connection reveals another facet of shadow dynamics. Jung noted that we often respond with particular defensiveness when others recognize our shadow projections. If he becomes unusually uncomfortable or defensive when friends or family suggest romantic feelings, this discomfort often signals unconscious recognition of a truth his conscious mind hasn't yet accepted. Understanding these shadow mechanics offers a compassionate perspective on his contradictory behavior. What might otherwise appear as emotional manipulation or indecision often represents a genuine psychological struggle, the tension between unconscious emotional truth and conscious self-concept. The mixed signals aren't necessarily deliberate, but reflect the mind's complex negotiation with its own depths. What if the greatest love story isn't the one you're trying to figure out, but the one already unfolding within him, beyond his conscious awareness? As we've explored throughout this journey into the Jungian understanding of unacknowledged love, the most profound connections often reveal themselves not through grand declarations, but through the subtle language of the unconscious. Remember that according to Jung, consciousness represents only the visible tip of our psychological iceberg. Beneath the surface of his logical mind, explanations, and even his own understanding of himself lies an ocean of feeling that may have already recognized the profound significance of your connection. His unconscious doesn't require his permission to fall in love. It may have already made that decision while his conscious mind is still catching up. The inconsistencies that might confuse you, the moments of unexpected tenderness followed by distance, the intensity of his attention contradicted by casual words. These aren't necessarily mixed signals, but rather the visible manifestation of this internal dialogue between what he consciously acknowledges and what he unconsciously knows. Jung believed that psychological wholeness comes through integration, bringing unconscious content into conscious awareness. By recognizing these subtle signs of his deeper attachment, you gain insight not just into his feelings, but into the profound psychological journey all humans navigate as we learn to reconcile our conscious identity with our deeper emotional truths. Whether this recognition leads to a spoken declaration of love, or simply a deeper appreciation of the complex psychological landscape we all inhabit, there is something profoundly beautiful about witnessing someone's unconscious truth emerging into the light of awareness. In the sacred space between what is said and what is felt, between conscious knowledge and unconscious recognition, lies perhaps the most authentic expression of human connection. One that speaks through synchronicities, dreams, projections, and all the subtle ways his soul communicates what his words have not yet found the courage to say.